So let's talk disclosure here in Minnesota. So if you are selling your home, sellers must provide either a written disclosure to the prospective buyer, or they are filling out an alternatives and selecting between two options. So let's get into it. Now, the main disclosure that we see is this one, the property disclosure statement. This is a lot more comprehensive. Sellers are filling out all the components about the home. They are filling out if there's been pests, has water come in, what pets have lived there while they've been there, what work has been performed, has anything been done without a permit, things like that is on that disclosure. The next one that we see is the disclosure alternatives. Now with this, there are two options that a seller can choose. Now, option one, I personally think is really silly, but it is your option as a seller. You can hire a third-party inspector to come in. They'll do a full inspection on your property, and they will give a report, and that report serves then as your disclosure statement to the buyers. Now, I think this is silly. I can see why some sellers could think this is a good idea. And maybe they're looking at it as, oh, perfect, we're already taking the inspection off the buyer's hands. They don't need to pay for an inspection. So we're going to get offers coming in that are waiving inspection. And that's just not the case. I would say most buyers, and I educate all my buyers on this as well, if we see inspection report already done, we're still going to have our own inspector go in. We want our trusted inspector to go take a look and look at all the components. If anything, it's okay, cool, we have another report to compare between the two. But most buyers are going to want their own inspector going through and not taking the word of someone they might have never heard of, or the agent might have not have heard of. And with that as well, on the sell side, inspections are always going to pop up with stuff that you didn't know about your home. So I'd say a better route to go with doing either the standard or doing option two for the alternatives. Option two on the seller's disclosure is a waiver. The written disclosure required may be waived if both the sellers and prospective buyer agree in writing. So with this, seller is not obligated to disclose any material facts of which the seller is aware that could adversely and significantly affect the buyer's use or enjoyment of the property. Now, they still do, and same with the inspection, there are still some things that are required by law to be disclosed. Have any radon inspections taken place? Is there a well on the property? Are there any subsurface sewage treatment systems in place? Has the home had any methamphetamine production? So things like that still do need to be required regardless of if you pick option one or option two on the alternatives. But so with the waiver, that's not necessarily something that's a red flag if you see it. It's not necessarily that the seller is trying to withhold information. We see it a lot with properties where maybe the seller hasn't lived in the home for maybe 5 years, 10 years, and they've been renting it. It makes more sense for them to fill out the waiver because they haven't been there to know all the material facts that have come up maybe while they were renting the home. Or we'll often see it as well if it's an investor that has come in and to remodel the home and they're selling it since they didn't live on the property. Or we often see it a lot too with estates, and it might be a family member selling it as well. So not necessarily something to be really concerned about if you are learning a little bit less about the property than you would with the standard disclosure, because it is so important to do an inspection and do as many inspections as you can to make sure that you are making an informed decision about the home you're buying if you are on the buy side seeing this. So some other disclosures that you might see as well if you're selling or buying would be a well disclosure. If the property does have a well, it's just another set of little more in-depth specifically speaking about the well, as well as a subsurface sewage system. So if there's a septic tank, if any homes are built before 1978 as well, they are required to have a lead-based paint disclosure. So that's just letting the buyers know whether the seller is aware of it, whether they're not. So some disclosures to keep in mind when you're on the sell side and also as the buy side. If you have any questions on disclosures or would like any additional information, please let me know. I'd be happy to answer any questions.